I think there is a few second delay between going live and then actually going, so I'm going to give it a second. And hello, everyone. This is Tyler Trott. Oh, I think I'm playing it on my YouTube here. Oops. Okay, this is Tyler Trott, and you're watching Runtime with a little bit of echo, but that's okay. Welcome. This is the first ever live session of Runtime. Hopefully you've seen some of our Runtime videos before, and if you haven't, be sure to check them out. They're only a few minutes long each and super useful if you're coding on the app platform. I guess while I'm talking, I can introduce myself. I'm Tyler Trott, a technology consultant and student ambassador at the Company. And we can have a round table here. There's a few of us. Xavier, you're next to me on my screen, so you go ahead.
Sure. I'm also a technology consultant and student ambassador for the Company. Over to you, Colin.
Hey, Colin Consul, Colin, one of the founders of the Company, and focus on all the infrastructure bits and technology around networking and security. Kevin?
Hi, I'm Kevin. I'll turn it over to you.
Majid, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. And hey, I'm Majid.
Oh, a little language.
So Majid, GD for Flutter and Dart, also a part of the advisory board in Company. I'm quite happy to represent Flutter community. Right.
And for those of you who don't understand, Majid is a GD of Dart and Flutter and also an ambassador for the Company. I'll translate for you guys.
And part-time Dalek. Because let's face it, your internet's playing you off, I think, Majid.
Okay. Yeah, it's just a little unclear. That's fine. So because we are doing the Runtime live sessions for all of you viewers, we would love to hear your feedback on some of the next session topics that we can cover. So feel free to comment, reach out to us, anything you'd like with anything you'd like to hear us talk about. So I guess I can throw it over to both Kevin and Colin, and they can talk a little bit on what devs can expect from the Company and what is the Company all about.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Are you going to show the presentation, Colin? Or?
I got to try and find it. Yeah. So, I'll get that up while you do the intro.
All right. Well, so first of all, welcome everyone. So we're super excited about our brand new Runtime Live series. This is going to be a lot of fun, and thanks to the team for putting it together. If you don't know, Tyler and Xavier are both actually students. That's their day job, but they contribute massively to the company as well. I don't know how they find time, but super grateful to both of them for all they do. So really excited to see that, and Xavier's going to show some stuff he's been working on, which will be fun. And then Majid will give us the critique from the Flutter community perspective, and looking forward to that as well. So we have not practiced this. This is literally live and unscripted, so it should be fun.
And I do have the deck, so we're in luck. I just about made it in time, so thanks for the dance there, Kevin.
No problem.
Here we go. So what if? After you, Kevin.
Okay, so what we're trying to do is really focus on kind of a new internet protocol that focuses on letting people own and control their data. But that has a lot of how that manifests itself in apps, I guess, and real customer experiences that people that developers can deliver is really interesting to contemplate. So the apps are very different, and they're much better, we believe, when things are private, and that has a lot of both social implications as well as technical. So in the end, what we're basically trying to do is make everything end-to-end encrypted, plus have some ability for control of data on top of that as well. So today, if you want to say, I'm going to go build an end-to-end encrypted app, it's very uncommon. You don't find many end-to-end encrypted apps out there, and so posit that it's because that's a hard thing to do or an unfamiliar thing to do. So what we want to do is actually make it really easy. Go forward. So what if it was really easy to build an end-to-end encrypted app? And that's really what the ad company is trying to do with our platform. But the platform is powered by this thing called, it's a brand new protocol, and it's an internet protocol. And Colin, you want to describe that?
Yeah, sure. So when Kevin and I started working on this problem, we realized pretty quickly that we were not going to solve it through sort of creating an API, creating a big fat server, and everybody logging into the server. The architecture had to change, and they really had to be peer-to-peer. And if it's peer-to-peer, then there is no API to talk to. So, well, if there's no API, then how do things talk to each other? Well, we have to develop a protocol, which is a standard way for programs, devices, things to actually talk to each other and exchange information. And to be honest, not many protocols get written these days. Everyone leverages something existing, and we tried. We did try very hard to leverage something existing, and we did get it working. But the fact was, it was way too expensive to run, and it was ridiculously slow. So the only way to do this was be bold, start with a blank sheet of paper, and start writing a protocol. And we chose Dart to write that protocol because we're lazy. And what Dart gave us was we didn't have to worry about different platforms. We didn't have to worry about different CPU architectures. We could cut and paste code from the one side of the code base to another, and it would just work. And it was an absolute joy. And to be honest, it was a bit of an experiment just to try and get a minimal viable product out the door so we could actually prove that it would work. But we sort of fell in love with Dart because every time we wanted something, the Dart team came to the rescue. So classically, we wanted to have we wanted to create binaries. This is the early days of Dart, and we couldn't create binaries. And magically, there was word on the street that the binaries would appear. So we kept pushing with Dart. So we ended up with this internet protocol, pure Dart, that really just allows us secure, just like it says on the slide here, secure exchange of information between two known entities. Those entities are @signs. So @signs is sort of the key here. And @sign, my @sign is @Colin, and Kevin's is @Kevin. And I know cryptographically there really is @Kevin that I'm talking to. And if I know it really is @Kevin, and I can use Kevin's public cryptographic keys, then I can send him information, and nobody else on the planet can decrypt that. And if Kevin has set up his infrastructure, nobody else can even see those packets going. I mean, they're just like sent across the internet just for Kevin. Nobody else can see it. So you have freedom to put any data you like. Doesn't really matter what the data it is. Everything's encrypted peer-to-peer, and everybody knows who everybody is. So that's the underlying protocol. But the good news is you don't need to know about the protocol. It just happens. Nobody other than me and Kevin wants to write protocol code. I really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. But we needed to abstract it. I'm going to pass back to Kevin.
Colin,
go ahead, Manjit.
Should I ask my questions or some questions?
If you got questions,
can I interrupt you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, good. So actually,
I can go back. There we go.
Yeah, we might have some audiences right now which probably don't understand when you say layers 3, 6, and stuff like that. So I wanted to maybe ask you if you can just very quickly say, I assume that this is based on OSI model, right? So the standard.
Correct. Yeah. So you may have
maybe very quickly when you say layers, like what exactly are you approaching over there? Like,
I'm with you.
What are these layers?
It's a great question. So a very, very long time ago, there was a number of competing standards in the internet world, one of which was OSI. And it had a model, and it also had a bunch of protocols. But the model stuck and the protocols didn't. TCP/IP won that battle. But weirdly, TCP/IP did not have a model, so we live with the OSI model, which is a 7-layer model, and at the bottom is how do you connect things together? It could be a wire, it could be voltages, all that good stuff. Then layer 2 is how do you communicate over that wire? We all heard of Ethernet. That's a layer 2 protocol. Ethernet's a standard. It's great for connecting devices on a wire, so they all know how to do it. But there's many other protocols you could use. But layer 2 is like how do you communicate. Layer 3 is actually where we get to connections, and that's IP and TCP, IP, UDP, all that good stuff. So it's really just a model. And as we move up from layer 3, we start being able to route information. And by layer 6, you've got applications talking to each other. And layer 7, we're way up there in the application stack, and it's identities talking to each other. So we sort of stop at the layer 6 and let application developers do whatever they want. So we don't actually put any constraints on the application, which is layer 7. We've tried very hard in the protocol to keep it as simple as possible, but only do useful things like routing information, encrypting information. All that stuff is in the OSI model. That's in layers 6 and 7. So if you look, if you want to find out more about that stuff, for me, it's interesting because I'm a network guy. All you need to do is search in Google for OSI 7-layer model. There's oodles of information. There's some really good YouTubes on it as well if you want to look at it.
So this is great. Definitely, if people don't know about this, they should search, because this is exactly how internet works. We as probably developers who are developing for web, especially on mobile, and communicating over, especially most of the time we are engaged in layer 7, which is HTTP, HTTPS, and stuff like that, right? So probably we don't know much about the underlying, but it's nice to understand because it gives a lot of good inputs, especially when you are working with these type of encryption, services like protocols that you created, so people will understand better. But I have a question here. So as a Flutter developer, let's say, or a Dart programmer, so probably here I should not care much, as you said, about these layers, right? So you provide me something which still it's familiar to me based on the layer 7. Like I still work with HTTP or HTTPS and TLS and stuff like that. So
we
is
actually,
that correct?
Yeah, that was sort of. We've abstracted it even further, and I'll show you what's coming up next. So hold that thought, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So actually what happens on the wire is sort of interesting as well. This is what actually happens on the wire. So if you are a network person, then you actually want to know what's happening on the wire. So how does a protocol actually look? Now, I suspect many people don't want to go down this far down the rabbit hole, but it's ridiculously simple. This is the beauty of a protocol. It's as simple as possible, but no simpler. And the blue bit here, where it says @Bob, that is @Bob's, and you'll see this in a minute, a secondary server. That's Bob authenticated to a secondary server. That's sort of your relay point on the internet. And he's just sending an update. That's the update verb there in the protocol, update : and sending a message to Alice. So it's Alice. That's a message. That's the next column there. And then the message, which is message 05, and then @Bob. So it's a message 05, come pick it up, message 05, Alice. And then you'll see an encrypted blob of data. So all that garbage there is actually what looks strangely similar to a JSON, which is what application can pick up. But it's all encrypted. So whoever's running this infrastructure, and for the main part, nobody wants to run infrastructure. So we even abstracted infrastructure away. You don't need to set up a web server. You don't need to set up anything. You just need to use the protocol and have a phone. That's it. But that's what happens on the wire. This is all encrypted at multiple levels. This is all running TLS. But that's what's actually happening on the wire. This underlying protocol You may have heard of Super Mail Transfer Protocol. That's how mail works across the world. So you don't need to, we can all send email, but we haven't all got the same email clients. We haven't got all that stuff. That's the beauty of a protocol is doesn't really matter what the application is, what it is. They can all talk, and you can do the same here with the app protocol. But as I said, nobody actually wants to write that stuff. Yeah, we all want to use the libraries. So go grab our libraries and stuff. But that's the beauty of the platform. So we realized pretty quickly that nobody wanted to write application stuff down at the network level. So Kevin, I'm going to pass back to you to explain what we did with the platform.
Cool. Yeah. So if you incarnate that protocol into a bunch of dark code and some libraries, then on top of that, you can start to build some cool things like SDKs that are consumable by people like me who write the application code. And so what we've done is make everything open source. I mean, everything that we do is open source. I mean, our dev site, everything is open source, which is pretty cool, I think. But it's so it's a full stack platform from an app developer, which means you don't have to go provision anything else to build an app. So you can build an app that creates data that can be routed using the protocol. I mean, and that's really powerful way to do programming, because you don't need servers, you don't need user management, you don't need to get SSL certs. I mean, there's all kinds of things you don't have to do now, because you're just putting it on the wire to get propagated out to where you're intending it to get to. So it's a full stack platform from that perspective. So that's all you need, and you can create end-to-end encrypted, completely private mobile apps. There's no surveillance. There's no ability to hack into the data. The keys live on the data owner's phone and stay there. And so that's so basically anybody in between, including us, can't access the information. So it's truly private, which means you can create applications you wouldn't have done before, where you say, well, I can't put that out on the internet. Somebody might get access to it or see it, or might end up in a dark website somewhere. No more. If they could, it's just going to be an encrypted blob, and that's kind of boring and not really useful. So and this is all done in Dart and Flutter, and there's so we've created an SDK that allows you to do it really easily. So go to the next slide. So basically, and this is as hard as it gets. So we're actually using an in-memory database on the phone. We're using the Hive database, or HiveDB, which is a pure Dart and Flutter database. So and it doesn't matter. That's all abstracted as well. So if you want a different persistence layer thing, you can do whatever you want to with it. There's a good interface for doing that. So basically, you create a key. It's a key value pair store. So you create a key, and we said, we're going to say this is message number 5, and we're going to share it with Alice. And that's the key thing there. The arrow's wrong place. It should be up there pointing at Alice. So shared with Alice, and then we have a namespace that allows apps to kind of segment their data from each other if you want it. It makes it a little more efficient for apps to get access to their data. But it's also, that's another story, that people's information is all kind of in one place, if you will, at least virtually so. So apps can actually share data with each other really easily. But and then you put in a value. So we're just going to put in a JSON object and store that. And so you just do use it the app client. Just do a put into the Hive database, or we call it the persistence layer. And you put the key in the value, and you're done. So that is then stored and notified automatically, so that Alice will get notified that here's some new data you need to pick up. So you can go read that from Colin's microservice and decrypt it and view it. So it's just that simple. All you have to do is say, here's some data. who I'm going to share it with, and I store it. That's all you have to do. And that's it. I mean, it couldn't be simpler to build an end-to-end encrypted app. And it's powered by this magic of a protocol that says, I'm going to pick that up and then do something with it and get it to the destination. But it also means that things they behave differently. So so you can imagine, I always like to tell the story, if you have a chat application, which everybody uses chat as an example. So chat application, and I've got my messages here and your messages here, and I changed my mind that I don't want for you to see my messages anymore. I can actually take mine away, and you're left with just your messages, half the chat interaction, because I control the data that you see. And so applications in the future with this are a combination of data that I'm creating on my phone and data that somebody's sharing with me from their phone, and I'm caching it. So I get to cache it for as long as they allow me to. And that would include, there's a bunch of other parameters that you can set for the data. So you can say, it has to be, it could be, there's like timers. You can say that I'm going to share information with you for 1 hour and then it disappears. I'm going to share information with you that doesn't appear for 1 hour and then it appears. And I'm going to share information with you that you have to refresh every 10 seconds because it's very dynamic information, or I'm going to take that data away from you. And so there's a cascade delete Boolean that's set on the data as well, so that if it's deleted from my phone, it'll be deleted from your phone automatically. And there's also a notify component to that. So Alice needs to know that there's some new information. So Alice gets notified, and the information is encrypted just for Alice, so nobody else in the universe can read it. And then it gets propagated over to Alice's microservice and to her phone, and stored in the cache. So that's basically how they have to think about the data. But chats are just a chat. So you just say, here's a chat message, and store it and say who it's shared with, and that's it. It's pretty simple.
May I ask you a silly question, maybe?
Yeah.
So let's say you're saying that, okay, there is two apps, they can actually communicate directly. There is, as I understood, there is like no server here, nothing. You just push some kind of content or data, and it will travel over the wire, go to another end, which is Alice or Bob in this case. So if I want to actually translate it to what we do as a normal, not a normal, I mean, my point is that as a daily basis that we do like stuff like REST, and, we push data over HTTP and, stuff like that, So if I want to translate it to this, does it like steal some sort of endpoints, and the endpoints is just that @ actually, let's say, account. So, and that means there is an endpoint. Actually, I'm actually pushing something towards that endpoint. However, that account or @ account still has so much power. So then they can reject, they can say, I don't want to receive that. They can just remove themselves at any point, right?
That's right.
And then the SDK that you're providing as an abstraction to us as a Flutter developer, let's say, this is going to let's say, abstract all of those complexity around traveling the message and stuff. We're just going to see a function, let's say, just push that or execute that function, and then it will eventually work, right? This is exactly what you're saying.
That's right. And it's weird because, I mean, I understand, I mean, I've been I'm very familiar with that process, but you kind of have to stop thinking about, okay, I need to, I mean, all you have to do is store it on your phone, and then so the SDK, and there is a microservice that the cylinder on both sides of the picture there is a microservice. There is a point of presence on the internet that's we call a secondary server. It's like a caching server, and so what that does is allow you to synchronize between devices if you have multiple devices, but also gives you a point of presence if your phone is offline or whatever. Then there's something that can respond that's got the latest cache of your encrypted data, so that there is a accessible point, and there's a directory on top of it. So the identities here, so @Bob basically is a self-sovereign ID. So it's So you're creating that, and that is your endpoint. So you've got this. @Bob is really simple. It's a unique identifier, self-sovereign. It's yours. You own it. You control what data is in there and what can be accessed by it. In the context of apps, right? So apps are where the data comes from. And then the protocol is responsible for picking that up, getting it, synchronizing it to this microservice, notifying the other recipient. So it's kind of like an email protocol, even though there's countless numbers of email servers of different flavors and email clients of different flavors, but they all work to get a message routed from one point to another point. So this is kind of like that, and so we're pushing more and more responsibility onto the SDK to take care of that stuff. So it takes care of all the connections and all the synchronization, the notifications. All those are services that are provided by the SDK, and in coordination with this microservice in the sky or on your own. I mean, you can run this yourself if you want. If you don't, we don't care. It doesn't matter where it runs, basically. But you need something that's internet accessible. And at some point, all that's going to migrate into the phone at some point. When phones become directly internet accessible, which they're not necessarily today, especially with things like Wi-Fi and NAT and all that kind of stuff. So this is a kind of a temporary measure for, I don't know, 5 years, maybe 10 years, until all that stuff changes and moves completely onto the phone, which would be awesome.
Yeah, this is great. So another question when it comes to the encryption and the keys, when you mentioned in the previous slide. So again, as a Flutter developer, let's say, when you are saying that you're creating a key, so you're creating, I assume, a public and private key, right? So and I can share this public key with anyone. Is it something that I have to do while I'm creating, or is it something that I can actually grab the key and later share it with someone else? Can I share it with multiple people? I mean, definitely it's possible. I mean, I just want to hear from you more of like limitations or advantages here.
Yeah, there's actually several keys. Let Colin talk about that. He loves this stuff.
I do. One of the things that we're really keen on is if people are going to own their data and the data is going to be encrypted, then they need to own their own keys and they need to cut their own keys. So these are cryptographic keys that are actually cut and made on your phone. Kevin and I have been working on this 7.5, 8 years, and 7.5, 8 years ago, trying to cut a cryptographic key on a mobile phone was laughable. They just weren't powerful enough. So you had to rely on some big server somewhere that would create your cryptographic keys. And if you're using some big server somewhere to cut the cryptographic keys, then they've got your keys. So that's a little bit broken. Fast forward to now, you can actually cut very strong RSA keys on your phone. So when you get an ad sign, you go to adsign.com, whatever, get yourself an ad sign, or just fire up one of our apps, and it will say, do you want to create a free ad sign? You'll see a little spinny thing, the classic Flutter spinny thing. And when you see that spinny thing, what's actually happening is your phone is cutting some cryptographic keys. Those keys are, first key is for encryption. And it's a RSA key pair. It's nothing fancy. We don't use any fancy cryptography. It's just off the shelf stuff we're using. Pointy Castle for all that stuff, which I know if anybody's into cryptography on Dart and Flutter, they're probably using Pointy Castle. You should be using Pointy Castle. So that key is a public side and a private side, and obviously you keep the private side and you don't let that go. You're asked to store it and keep it. That's the other part of onboarding your ad sign is it will cut those keys and you get to look after those keys. So please do look after them. Nobody else has got them. They were made on your phone. So literally nobody else on the planet has got those keys. You are the person that with great responsibility, you have to look after those keys. So if you lose them, you can get back on board again, but don't lose them. Look after them. So the first set of keys is an encryption pair. The underlying protocol will actually advertise out your public side of that key. So in the past, you had to go to PKI meetings and share your public key and all the rest of it. Protocol takes care of that. Anybody can look up your public key. It's public, so it should be look upable publicly. You've got the private side of it, but RSA keys are really not very good. Imagine everybody on the app platform is doing exactly the same. They're not very good for encrypting whole bunches of data. They're very good for encrypting small bits of data, but you couldn't encrypt a video stream or whatever with that. So we actually create some other keys, the AES keys, 256-bit AES keys, for actually doing transfer of data. And guess what? When you transfer some data encrypted with the AES key is encrypted with your public key when somebody wants to send something to you, and only you can decrypt it. And then you can get hold of the AES key to decrypt the message. So that's literally how it works. It's 101 cryptography, but guess what? Nobody wants to know that stuff. They just want to use it. So it's invisible to you. There is another key which we use for authentication. So these cylinders on this chart here, they are the microservices. They're actually Docker containers. So again, nothing complicated. They're just regular Docker containers. You can look at Docker Hub and you can see the containers, pull them down, play with them. But when they fire up, they're blank. They have nothing, and you have a shared secret. And then you send your public key using that shared secret, and then only you can authenticate to that microservice because you've got the public key to authenticate. And then the shared secret is deleted. So before you put any data on one of these things, you authenticate, make sure that works. And again, all of that stuff's hidden away from you. You don't need to know about it, but that's exactly what's happening. As I say, it's not anything particularly clever in the crypto world. It's just glued together by the protocol that makes all that stuff work.
That's good. So I have another question. I'm sorry, I'm coming with a lot of questions right now. So as a Flutter developer, again, I have a question here. You said that the keys, the private ones, and like all of the keys that we explain right now will reside in my phone.
Yeah.
Right? So if I right now developing an app with @sign protocol and everything is taken care of by SDK, whatever you provide, that's good. And my customer who is going to use my app, which is implemented @sign, do they need to care about these key stuff? Like, should we explain about that? So, or are you going to tell the customer that now you have to maybe save this private key somewhere safe, or is that something part of this implementation?
I'm gonna hand back to Kevin.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, there's two parts. So the keys are actually stored in the keychain on the phone, in a trusted root, or what do they call that?
TPM.
Yeah, TPM, even on desktop or whatever as well now. So the good news is there are Flutter libraries that allow you to store information in and out of those TPMs, which is cool. So it's actually stored apart from anything that we do. It's stored in the phone's trusted root. And then the other part is the best part about Flutter, I think everybody agrees, is widgets. So we actually have an onboarding widget that will do all of that for you. So getting them set up and getting their keys cut and stored and put into the keychain and all that kind of stuff. We actually have an onboarding widget that takes care of all of that for you. So it's super simple. Mm-hmm. They can get a free @sign in seconds, and now they've got their own self-sovereign encrypted crypto ID in seconds for free. So that's kind of fun. And then of course, if they want to get really fancy and get, I don't know, if @BMW wants @BMW, that's how we make money, is selling vanity @signs. So we actually don't charge developers anything ever. In fact, we pay developers if somebody buys a vanity sign with their app. You can make money, which is interesting. I think we're the only development platform that pays money to developers, which they all should do actually. But they anyway. So that's that's how it works. So the onboarding takes care of cutting the keys, storing, making sure everything's in the right format, in the right place, and the onboarding just takes 10-20 seconds to cut the keys. Still takes time, but it's again super simple.
Thanks. I will not ask any question anymore. I see
No.
I think Xavier is waiting for demonstrating chit chat, and I think we should skip some question and see it actually in action, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, you'll see a lot of these widgets and libraries there, but I mean, use the ones you want to use, and everything else should magically just work. But it's all open source, so if it doesn't work, get hold of us. We've got a whole bunch of people that can help get people up to speed with this.
What I really wanted to hear was this, actually. As a Flutter developer, let's say, I wanted to hear, like, if this platform or @Sign in general, is it putting a lot of pressure, like knowledge pressure, on me to go and learn about all of this? And it seems not. So you're like, all the hardest stuff is already done. I just have an abstraction, some widgets playing around, and boom, everything is done. That's what I wanted to hear.
Don't you love widgets, Magic? It's like the best thing ever.
Yes, I love widgets.
Me too.
We should give a shout out to Tyler here. When Tyler joined as an intern, none of the widgets existed, none of the libraries existed, and we forced Tyler to learn about our protocol. Yeah. And he basically said, "This is too hard." And we're like, "We agree."
That's great. So you are Tyler the widget.
When I had joined, all I had to work with was command prompt, and that's it. And just Docker. I had nothing else to go on. So
that's cool. That's cool.
I'm very happy to say we've come a long way. And to prove that we've come a long way, we have Xavier here, who actually has built one of our apps, one of our demo apps, which proves that you can really simply make a Flutter app on the app platform. So Xavier, you can take it away here.
Sure.
Very good.
Do you want to put my screen on stage?
Oh, yes. There it is.
Awesome. So we're going to start from scratch, and in the essence of time, I'll get this going. This is app, which is our version of Flutter Create. And it's just going to spin me up a quick app platform project here. So I'm using a pre-release build of it.
And we have one question here. So the first thing that we've seen was a command line that people should install, right? So you run your the app is a command line tool that you're providing to us, right? For
That's
those
correct.
who probably doesn't know.
So if I head on over to pub.dev, it's
here we go.
/app.
Very good.
And to give some context, @app is also something Xavier made, but it's our version of Flutter Create. And it actually uses Flutter Create. Is that right, Xavier?
It does, yeah. So behind the scenes, it actually runs Flutter Create before building. And do you want to post that in the comments, Tyler?
So it's like, let's say in short, it's a Flutter Create, and you add some cosmetic, like @Sign cosmetic to it, and then boom, app is up and running. That's what it does.
Sort of, yeah. It just sort of replaces that main.dart with our own template. So
perfect.
Let's head on over in here. And you'll see there's also a .m file. So in my arguments, I specified two things, which was the namespace, or -n is short, and I also specified an API key, and I'll explain those as we get into the application. And then you'll see here, this does not look like Flutter Create at all. And so there's quite a bit going on. So,
can you make your fonts a bit bigger, maybe 2x
yeah.
bigger? And yeah, perfect. Maybe you can make it full screen. Yeah, good.
Sure. So this is the @client preference here. This is essentially like the settings you want for the @client within the app. That's the short version of it. And then of course we have traditional my app here that gets run above. And there's a little bit of, this is where it gets a little different. So we have two state items here, the @client service and @client preference. So @client preference we talked about, that's like your configuration for the app. And then @client service is that abstraction of the app protocol. So that's the actual SDK, that's where you access the @client from. And so coming down a little further here, you'll see we have this onboarding. So that's how we onboard an @sign into the application. And we're actually going to modify this and make it a little nicer for this application. And that's just in a button. So when you press the button, it calls the onboarding for you. And the only other thing we have here is this next screen, which is an empty screen here at the bottom. And so we're going to replace this with a screen for our app. And I'm just going to get started. So the first thing I want to do is I'm actually just going to spin up the app on the side for us here. See, is it cooperating?
So until this one comes up, a question here. So this onboarding widget is the one that actually Colin mentioned. Like it will take care of all of those complexity that we just spoke about.
Yep. Exactly.
The keys and managing those keys and all the other things. Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah. And so that's all this app pretty much includes, is that onboarding widget, and then it takes you to the next screen.
Okay.
Yeah. And beyond that, everything else is just basic configuration. So we just wrap that in there for you to make it a little easier to get started.
I see.
Should be done almost. Okay, so this button, I can press it here, and it's gonna ask me for my camera. I can supply it, and then I believe I have this @sign on here, so I can type that in and press submit. And because I've already paired this @sign, I actually have my backup keys or my key file, and they should be on this device, and I can just go ahead and select them here.
Oh, wait a second. A couple of questions here for those who really doesn't know, haven't seen this before. So first of all, the @sign account that you've been adding there, your account.
Yep.
So this is something that Colin said we can go to like @sign company and grab one, right? So
yep.
Let's say if you are building this application for my customer, they should go there and grab one @sign account first, right? We should somehow tell them how they can grab those @sign, for example.
Yeah. So if you come to @sign.com here, you can go ahead and press get an @sign, and you can go through the process, follow along, and pick up an @sign. So it'll greet you with a screen like this. So you can either select a free one, and you can refresh as many times until you find one you like, or you can create a custom sign, which costs a little bit. But in this case, once you've already picked up a bunch of @signs, you'll be able to sign in, and it'll look like this. And so you'll see I have a few custom @signs here, and then I have my free ones.
Sure.
So I just authenticated with this one here, which is already set up and activated.
Sure. So the key that you mentioned, is it coming from this authentication here? So you saved it somewhere, so then now you can upload?
Yeah, so this is one that I've activated, but I haven't paired with a device yet. So if I press click to scan, or try to press click to scan, a QR code should pop up, and in the app, there's actually the option to also scan a QR code, and that'll pair and cut the keys for you and ask you to save them.
Okay. When you say in the app, you mean @sign app, like
yeah,
Wave app or
any of the apps that use that onboarding widget that we discussed.
okay, and
Yeah.
okay.
So it's actually in that onboarding widget. So let's bring this
Okay.
back up.
But you can also, from the onboarding widget, you can just do the same thing. You can get a free @ right there, and just
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so I don't need to tell my customer then go to okay, so they can actually look up for names and just grab it from the app.
That's right.
That's coming from onboarding widgets.
That's correct.
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect.
So yeah, and you can page through until refresh through until you find one you like, and then you've got you've got a free @ there, and it'll do everything else. You don't have to go to any website at all.
Okay, perfect.
So what I'm gonna do as well is I'm gonna cheat in a bit of code here just for the sake of time.
Until you cheat this code, one more question for you, Kevin or Colin. So I have a customer now. They picked from onboarding, let's say, an account, so they're set. So if I build another app with @ they don't need to grab anything else, right? They already have one, and then they can just continue with that, right? Okay.
That's right. That's where exactly what Xavier did. You just type in the one you have, and it'll say, okay, that one's all set up. Or if it's not set up, it'll walk you through setting it up. If it is set up, then it'll say you stored your key somewhere, so give us upload the key here, and you're off and running.
Perfect.
So
yeah, it handles all that workflow for I think all the use cases we've found so far.
Perfect.
And this could be done for an IoT device or whatever as well. So it's
yeah, actually, I was thinking like this is actually a perfect match for IoT industry right now, because the privacy over there is like quite loose, let's say, but then this is end to end, and it's way secure, let's say. That's a great use case.
And there's Colin's found a thing called Zimbit, I think, which is is a TPM for Raspberry Pi. So that's super cool. If you want to have your keys stored securely on a Raspberry Pi, for example, you can do that with a Zimbit little dot card.
That's very cool.
Yeah,
very cool. But then, since Xavier is typing some stuff, do you want to explain what you are doing here? You're doing @chat package.
Yeah, so this is @chat Flutter. This is one of our pub packages, and so this is what's going to allow me to quickly create a chat screen. So I'm going to install that, and I'll pull it up while it installs. So we can go to pub @chat Flutter, and there's that package. The other one I'm going to be installing as well is @contacts Flutter. Okay, so let's install that one as well.
So these are two packages that will actually add chat and contacts on top of @, let's say, protocol and stuff, right? Okay.
Yeah, so they'll actually give me widgets as well as they depend on the base library. So I'll have a full contacts screen.
Yeah.
Available to me. So I'm gonna shrink this by 1 just so I can see. And this is mostly cosmetic when I'm putting in here. It just allows me to demo multiple @ a little easier, and I'll explain what this code does because it's quite long. But it's mostly just basic Flutter stuff. So you'll see here, I'm just sort of modifying the onboarding, and I'll go incorporate this into my main file in a second. But what I'm doing here is I'm using the keychain manager, which is part of the SDK, to get all the @ stored on my keychain. And so when I init state here, I'm calling this to get the @ list from the keychain, and then I'm setting the @ list, as well as if there's any @ in that list, I'll assign the first one as my default. Okay. And then what that lets me do is if there are any @signs available, I'll show a drop down so I can select an @sign and just immediately onboard using that one. I'm also including a button to set up a new @sign and then a reset. So what this is actually going to do is I'm going to pass in that onboarding function that I've already have in main. I'm going to pass it into this widget. So that's how I'm going to be doing that onboarding. And then the last thing is we have a bunch of UI here to do the reset, but the actual reset happens here. And that's with the keychain manager as well. And I'm just deleting it from the keychain and then removing it from my list in state.
Sorry, when you say reset, what do you mean? What are you resetting?
So
Why
once
are
I've
you resetting?
onboarded with the @sign, it's in the keychain. I might want to remove that @sign from the keychain. And so that allows me to do that. So, for example, if you've deleted an @sign from your account, it'll still be stored in the keychain on your phone. You might want to remove it. There's a number of reasons why. Yeah. And so that option is there as well. So now I'm going to come back to main.dart here. And let's go ahead and come up to this button here. So I'm actually going to turn this, I'm going to wrap this widget with a column here. And we'll just add a little bit of the chit chat branding here. And we'll say text style. And we'll say font size can be like 36. And we'll have that button there for onboarding. And I might want a little bit of space, so I'll add that too. Give it a height of 100. Okay. So now I have this onboarding function here, like I said, but I've created that onboarding button. So I'm going to turn this into the onboarding function or onboarding button here. And if I scroll all the way up here, you'll see that it has that one argument and it's a void function string. And that's my onboarding function, which is this function right here that's currently the onPressed. So I'm going to cut it out right here. And should be able to remove this and say onboarding button. Import it. And it expects an onboarding function. And I need string @sign here. Oh, I have a future void. Am I missing here?
Maybe in your, are you returning something here?
Here we go.
Yeah, here you go.
There we go. It's possibly null. And so the last thing I'm going to do is this onboarding has a string @sign argument. So I want to pass down that @sign from above. So I'm going to say @sign and then @sign.
Okay.
Okay. That looks good. So let's just give this a test run. So you'll see what I've done here is I only have the one @sign, so there's nothing else available in the drop-down list, but I can go ahead and reset my @sign or choose to cancel. And I can also add a new @sign. So I have a blue heart @sign as well. So let's go ahead and use that.
So this UI right now comes from the onboarding widget from the package, right? So it's like completely taken care of.
So I've created UI around the onboarding package, but I've also implemented some of this. So this I plan to make into a template available to add app as well in the future.
That's good.
Okay. So now my UI is a little out of sync here. But if I might have to hot restart. And you'll see I have both those @signs as well as both of them here. And so of course we can have that onboarding widget reload when we go back in the future. But for the sake of time, we'll move on. And the next thing I want to introduce is that chat screen. So we'll throw in the chat screen here, and need to be careful with naming because there's a chat screen in the package as well. So I'll make it chats plural. And we'll create a stateless widget here and call it chat screen. And so I need two things imported. I need, of course, material. And then we'll get the second one imported in a second here. First thing I want to do actually is, we're good. Set up a scaffold for this screen. And we can give it an app bar, normal Flutter stuff. We'll do, just call it chat at the top. And this is where we're going to use that chat package for our chat screen. And it's just going to be screen singular. So that one comes from @chat Flutter up here. And so we're going to pass in a few arguments. So we want to use full height of what we have available to us. Like so. And then we'll say .size, .height. So that's using all the height available. And then I can give it a title, which I haven't set yet. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to pass in title as a field. Say this .title. It's an argument on this widget. Am I doing on time?
A question actually right now was raised to me is that, let's say, if now we see the @sign, accounts and whatever, everything is here, perfect. But what if my customer right now, I implemented this chat, right? So
Yep.
What if my customer right now go and buy a new mobile and they want to install my app again? So how would be the onboarding process? Should they again go to the same process, like same thing? And what if they didn't save that key? Is there any way to retrieve that, or no? Like if they lost the key, that's done.
So it's obviously stored in the keychain, so we can export it. So on phone number 1, go to an application and just export that key, and put it on a Google Drive or iDrive, and get it over to the other phone, and then onboard on the other phone. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Actually, it's exactly the scenario that hit my mum. She uses one of our apps to keep in contact with me. And she got a new phone. She goes, "How do I do this?" I'm like, "Well, just get your key." And she goes, "I haven't got the key." I'm like, "Okay." And she just recovered it from the Wavy app, and life was good. But it is a good idea to keep a copy of that. So keep it somewhere safe just in case you lose the phone. You wouldn't be able to recover it if you'd lost the phone. So anyway, that's as I say, with great power comes great responsibility. So you are the only person with those keys. So but that means nobody else can play with your data. But equally, you've got to look after your keys. Just like your house. If you've got a house, then you've got to look after your keys.
Yeah, sure.
If you lose them, then we can always change the locks. That's not a problem. But obviously you won't be able to get to the data that you put up on the on your apps and all the rest of it. So
Also, if with your new phone, if you just restore from a backup of your old phone, which most people do, then everything gets brought across. So
So how's that for a chat screen, Majid? 20 lines?
Yeah, that's cool. So, I mean, I'm actually very impressed. Well, to be honest, I worked with @sign a couple of times. So, but people asked me a couple of questions about that, and I had to ask you because there were some kind of concerns, let's say, for example, let's say as a developer, so you're providing right now, you're showing me that you're providing everything to me. So it's like all the hard work is abstracted away from what I have to do as a Flutter developer. As I see right now in the chat and everyone is seeing is that for creating this chat screen, it's just a few lines of code in Flutter. Everything else is taken care of. However, one of the questions that I usually receive is that like having a chat inside the app, it's, well, it might be typical, but not every app has a chat, right? We might want to actually secure the end-to-end encryption for different things. For the way that we send messages from like us to our users, let's say, inside the app. Or another question actually I had right now while Xavier is writing the contact screen is some people ask me, how about the documents? Like right now we're talking about messages, right? So, okay. But then documents, like let's say if I have a PDF, it's signed PDF, so no one can open it and read it because it's signed. So is this type of also the things that @sign can take care of that?
Yeah, it really doesn't care what the data is. If it's so you take a PDF, even a signed PDF, but you can also then end-to-end encrypt it. So it'll be encrypted with an AES key and shipped over to somebody. So again, only they can open that file. Or it could be a picture, or it could be a video stream. I mean, we're not quite done yet, but we're working on the implementing a streaming connection. So if you wanted to have a encrypted video stream or encrypted audio stream, then you could also handle that kind of data as well. So the protocol doesn't care at all what the data is.
Perfect.
And again, we're trying to make widgets that are you can either use them as they are, use them as a sample code and modify it all you want. So it doesn't, we're not saying that our widgets are the best widgets ever, but hopefully they're useful.
Yeah, sure.
But if it doesn't fit what you want, then it's super simple to either create a new one or modify one that we have to fit what you want.
Exactly.
And they're all open source, so if you want to contribute, we love pull requests.
Yeah, if you make it better,
yes,
anybody can make it better.
Taylor, you can maybe send the GitHub repo to the chat so everyone can see, and because our developers would love to contribute, I know, so they will go and contribute.
Awesome.
Okay, so there's our contact screen. So now when I press the send icon next to a contact, it'll set that @ as the person I want to chat with, and then it'll take me into that chat screen that I just created.
Perfect.
Okay. And so the last thing we need to do is over in main, or there's a few things. So first thing is I'm using this empty screen as the screen to go to when I'm onboarding. So I need to change that to the contact screen I just made, which is this one. And we need to import it as well. Done. And the last thing I need to do is there's a services component. So there are some services I need to activate, and I can quickly just write up this code, or we'll copy it in and then we'll talk about it, because we are past time. So I'll import both of these really quickly. And I need to create one data structure here, and it's pretty straightforward. So it's a map that essentially lets me know if @ has been initialized. And try I spelled that right. There we go. And it should be used over here. One last import. So what I'm doing here is I'm initializing the contact service with the @client that I get back from onboarding. So we get some feedback and we get this service which contains an @client. And I'm using that to initialize the contact service. And then in this version of at chats, you have to be careful not to initialize it more than once. So what I'm doing here is I have this map to let me know if I've initialized it or not for an @sign. So if I already have initialized it, I'll just, set it up this way. Otherwise, if it hasn't been initialized, I'll go ahead and do the initialization call. And so I believe that is everything. So let's go ahead and give this a test run. And I do have one more. Emulator sitting over here somewhere. Let's see if we can find it. There we go. So, oh, we might have to play a bit of a guessing game. I think it's one. There's only one way to find out. So we'll do blue heart on the white one. And so you'll see it actually was able to get my contacts for this @sign. If I go in,
Perfect.
here's a little chat I had with myself earlier. Okay.
You chose wisely.
Yes, apparently.
Yeah, so here's that generate a free @sign. And there is that scan QR code. So if you did it from the website, you
Exactly.
can scan. Or I guess we can make a new @sign right now. Or actually no, because my API key is bad. So that API key that I have in here is used for that to reach the API to get an @sign.
Where can we get this key?
Colin, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, just reach out to us on Discord, and we'll sort you out. In the future, we want to actually make the API key disappear. So we're working on making the API disappear, so nobody needs to worry about it. Yeah, watch this space. It's literally is an API key, and we don't really like API keys. So
yeah, sure.
But if you do need one in the interim, it's not a problem. Just reach out to us.
So then I'm gonna go ahead and upload this one.
It's basically so we get people paid. So if you write an app like ChitChat and somebody buys an @sign, then we want to make sure that we know that we can get the right person paid for developing the application. So it's basically tied to your account, Majid. So that's
perfect.
That's why it's there. It's not functionality. It's just make sure we get developers paid.
So it looks like we got a little bit of feedback in my app here. It's probably my code. But I can go ahead and give this a test run and say hi. We'll see if it comes through. I might have to restart these. So one of the things that we're fixing in our new version of the SDK is the ability to monitor for when those messages come through or those notifications come through. And so one of the one drawbacks with this particular application right now is sometimes that service in the background will die and it won't be able to pick up those messages. So I'll just give it a restart here.
Until we restart, Kevin or Colin or maybe Xavier. So I, as a Flutter developer now, I can go grab all of those Docker that you mentioned and all the SDKs, widgets, and then build everything in my infrastructure. Is that something that I can do? The only thing that I'm rely on is that @sign, let's say account or whatever we want to call it. The rest is something that I can completely do by myself.
Yeah. So one of the things that actually when Tyler joined us, he asked exactly the same question. It's like, yeah, I want to run this on my laptop. I'm like, okay, game on. That's a good challenge. So what we've done is actually created something we call the virtual environment. And there's instructions on how to set it up. There you go. There it is. And the virtual environment is essentially the whole stack, including the root server and all that stuff that you can run on your Mac, on your Linux, on your Windows box through the power of Docker. So it's essentially is a Docker container that contains I think about maybe 15 or 20 ad signs that are pre-configured, but they run locally on your machine. So you have full and total control. You can see all the network traffic. You can see absolutely everything. And if you want to have full control like that and actually not be concerned with any of our infrastructure or setting up ad signs or the rest, you can do that with the virtual environment. What we tend to find these days, though, is that most people just want to write the app like Xavier, and they just get a free ad sign and use the production infrastructure. So setting up Docker and all the rest of it's very sort of DevOpsy. So if you're a DevOpsy person, you'll have a blast. It's a lot of fun. But if you're a developer writing Flutter, then why bother? Just do what Xavier did and get yourself a couple of free ad signs and go at it. And then you don't have to set up any infrastructure, all the rest of it. So it depends on your bent. If you're like me and you're lower down in the stack, I love the virtual environment. If you want to write an app and just concentrate on the app, then just get a couple of free ad signs, or as many as you like. Yeah. You can get 10, I think, free ad signs without any problem.
And also with Des, you can run in production yourself, or dev or productions. You can actually we have the secondary server you can just download and run. It's called Des, a distributed edge secondary server. So instead of running on our GCP environment, it'll run wherever you want to.
It's actually really handy to do that, and then you can see the log files, and you can see that whether your app is actually hitting the microservice and doing all the right things. You won't, unless it's public data, you won't be able to see the data in the log files because they'll all be encrypted. So you'll be able to see the transactions, but you won't actually be able to see any of the data.
Sure.
So I did miss a setting here, and that's the sync strategy. I wanted it to immediately sync those to the secondary server. And so I've totally messed up these at signs now, and all the data is out of sync. But if we go ahead and give it another test, you'll see here. Come through on the other side.
There you go.
It works.
But that's great. So Xavier, can our audiences can get the source code and maybe have a look later? So maybe we can share this code.
This one's on my personal GitHub here, this application. So I'll be adding a new branch with the code that I just did now. So it'll be up there soon. But this is the original implementation, and that new SDK I was talking about is that our SDK branch there. And so I'll have one that's probably titled Runtime Live, and that'll be the code I just did now.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right, good. So one last question, I promise. So is all of this SDK working on all platforms? Or, I mean, Android, iOS, because Flutter runs on 6-7 platforms, right?
Yeah.
Can we utilize that in all platforms?
Android and iOS for sure. Yeah.
So, So I mean,
really dependency are device level services that are like the keychain and that kind of stuff. And I think it's, so I think it actually does work, but we haven't really tested it fully on all the different environments. But the libraries that we're using for talking to the keychain do support all the native platforms. But
in fact, excluding web, I was just thinking maybe for even desktop, because we still have a keychain and maybe other things, right? So it might work, excluding web, I said. So probably, so it's because it might be some use cases, because I had some use cases, like when you create a chat, you might want to provide a desktop app for your customer, don't
Absolutely.
you? So you can, that's the power of Flutter.
We're actually working with developer to do 2 apps that are on the desktop right now. So yeah, it's just, so I would say it almost certainly works, but we haven't tested it fully, so I can't promise.
Perfect.
But But if anybody wants to have a go at it, let us know if they find issues and we'll fix them. So that would be good.
Yeah, the only platform we can't deploy on is the web browser. And there's no safe place to put the keys. And there's all sorts of history, I guess, in the web browser.
Yeah, definitely. Makes sense. Right.
So we're
very cool.
What was that, Kip?
We are working on that as well.
Yeah.
We want to support browsers, but we'll probably have to do a browser plugin or something to deal with keys and the keychain. I mean, we want the keys in the keychain on the device, right? Not in a browser.
Yeah, sure. That's very cool. So impressive. I think it's a lot of cool stuff here, a lot to learn for sure. So for those who are seeing us for the first time, probably they have hundreds of questions. So I want to ask everyone, if you're watching us right now, please reach out to any of us right now. You can find us on Twitter, Discord, @Discord, and GitHub issues. Feel free to just ask questions and ask us to help you. Any of us. I think we are all open for helping and helping you to get us started with @Sign. This is a great opportunity to make your app privacy first, let's say, create a privacy first app. We had almost no opportunity like that. This is one-time opportunity, let's say. Great.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today as well, Majid. It's great having you here. I was going to ask for any final remarks, and you just gave one. Sorry, were you going to say something, Majid?
No.
Okay.
I think I spoke too much today already.
Fine. It's what you're here for. Colin, Kevin, any final remarks? I know we're over by quite a bit now, but...
No, just super grateful to Majid and to you and Xavier as well. But Majid, thank you so much, and don't ever hold back on the questions. Those were awesome.
Thank you.
Majid, what is Vikings happening? What's happening with Vikings?
You should not ask in a public live stream about this right now. But I can say Flutter Vikings this year, not this year, maybe early next year, around February. And I'm thinking to do it in person. Already secured some venues in Norway, Oslo. That's the first time actually I'm talking about that right now. So I will share more details later next week in my different channels for sure.
I love Vikings. I had to ask. I know I was not allowed to, but I had to ask.
I mean, you all have to fly to Oslo when it's happening, definitely. For the next episode, Flutter Viking, we will actually stand next to each other and just talk and, maybe live stream as well. That's a hybrid version I'm thinking about.
How cool would that be? Thank you so much.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you all for watching. And next time, be sure to actually ask for a topic that we can cover. We are here for you. That's why we're having this session. So thanks again for watching. I hope everyone has a great day. See you all later.
Yeah.